With the 2023 F2 grid now confirmed, let's take a look at the drivers and constructors, as well as some key people within Formula 2. Welcome to the second episode of Formula Talk, where we talk about everything F2, F3, and other motorsport racing series. My name is Sophia, and joined with me today is the usual Tom Downey. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad.
That's good to hear. But first, if you enjoyed this podcast, we would love it if you can leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And you're one of the 77% of people who haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please consider helping us out with a like, subscribe, and a share. Let's get into it. First up on the grid is Dennis Hauger. He's 20 with nationality of Norway, currently racing for MP Motorsport. However, last season, he was in Formula 2 with Prema and finished 10th. Previously to that, he was, in 2021, the F3 World Champion. And for this year, he's also confirmed as a Red Bull Junior driver. Driving alongside him is actually his teammate from last season with Prema, Jehan Daruvla. He's been in F2 since 2020 and finished 7th last season. He was with Carling for the first 2 years, and then, as mentioned, was with Prema. He's 25 with nationality of India, and he's also racing for MP Motorsport. He was a former Red Bull Junior driver, but was released in 2023. He's also drove a McLaren in testing 3 different times for Silverstone, Algarve, which is in Portugal, and Paul Ricard in France. Next up, we have Enzo Fittipaldi, 22-year-old Brazilian driver, currently going to be racing for Rodi and Carling. He's been in F2 since 2021 with Charouz Racing. He finished 8th last season. He is also a Red Bull Junior driver and also the grandson of 2-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi. And they're definitely keeping it in the family because his brother is currently the reserve driver for Haas.
Just taking over from Sophia a moment. Next on the grid, we have Enzo Fittipaldi, born in 2001, which means he'll be 22 this year. He's a Brazilian native. I'm sure a lot of people will recognise the surname. And this year, he's going to be driving for Carlin. He's been in F2 since 2021 with Charouz. He finished 8th last season. He's recently signed for the Red Bull Junior program, and as I alluded to earlier, he's part of the Fittipaldi family. So his grandfather is Emerson Fittipaldi, and his brother Pietro Fittipaldi is the Haas reserve driver. Joining him in Carlin is the 20-year-old Barbadian driver Zane Maloney. He had quite the year last year in Formula 3. It was his rookie year. He was the top rookie in F3 as he finished 2nd, with this being his first season in Formula 2 coming up in 2023. He is a Red Bull Junior driver, and he is set to be Red Bull's reserve driver in Formula 1. And also his uncle actually owns a circuit back in Barbados. Does that mean we could see the Barbados Grand Prix? Somebody called Liberty Media. I'm sure Sophia would love to see that.
Yes, take it to the islands. Be so exciting. Following from that, we have Théo Pourchaire, who is the French 20-year-old driver. He's one of the few drivers that are actually sticking to the same team that he was with last year. He'll be racing with ART. He was the runner-up in F2 in his 2nd year last year, and he's a Sauber Academy driver. And you may have recognized his name in F1 as he's been able to do some free practice 1 sessions last season in the Alfa Romeo car. Joining him for his rookie season is the 2022 world champion in F3, Victor Martins. The 22-year-old French driver makes it an all-French lineup for ART, which is also a French constructing team, similar to Alpine. And while mentioning Alpine, he's also the Alpine Academy driver for this season as well.
Next on the grid, we have Frederick Vesti, the 21-year-old young Danish driver driving for Prema. Last season, he finished 9th with ART and has made the switch over to Prema as he hunts down for the F2 title. He is also a Mercedes Junior driver who drove the W13, guess you could say unlucky for some, in the Abu Dhabi Young Drivers Test after the conclusion of the 2022 F1 season. His teammate this year is 18-year-old Oliver Bearman, who is yet another Brit on the grid. As mentioned, he is obviously going to be driving for Prema, given his Vesti's teammate. Bearman finished F3 as a rookie. He finished 3rd. He's also starting his first season in F2, and he is a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy.
Another upgrade from F3 to F2 is Jack Crawford, the American 18-year-old driving for High Tech this season. Last season, as mentioned, he drove in F3 and he finished 7th. He's also another Red Bull Junior driver. There's a lot of them being on the grid this season. Joining him as well is Isaac Hajar, the French 19-year-old driver. Again, another F3 progression. That's a rookie team, so that would be quite an interesting one to look out for. He finished 4th, and again, a Red Bull Junior driver. What do you think about the double rookie teams? Is that a good thing, or is it going to be like Haas?
Do you know what? I was gonna mention Haas. I really hope it doesn't turn into that. Given they haven't got a Russian flag on the front of their car, I'm sure they'll be okay this season. But yes, I'm a double Red Bull Junior team. Maybe they can start scrapping it out for a drive in the RB19 or whatever Red Bull will call it this year. But further down the grid, I say further down the grid, it's only because going in sort of order of I don't even know what. No, there is no order to this.
It's the constructors lineup.
Thank you, Soph. I knew I was trying to get somewhere with that. Next up on the grid, we have the 2 Dams drivers, with Ayumu Iwasa being the young 22-year-old Japanese driver who finished 5th in F2 last year with Dams, and he is yet another Red Bull Junior driver. His teammates, some of you might recognise his surname, Arthur Leclerc, born in 2000. He is Monegasque, not French, they are Monegasque, also racing for Dams, as I mentioned. He was in Formula 3 last season. He finished 6th with Prema. This is his rookie season, and as I mentioned, he is the brother of the Ferrari incumbent driver Charles Leclerc. He is also the Formula Regional Asian Champion for 2022. For once, we don't have a Red Bull Junior driver. We have a Ferrari driver, Academy member, on the grid, as you might guess, given his brother's links to Ferrari.
There's a lot of Ferrari Academy drivers, though, in this grid as well, but not as much as the Red Bull, for sure. Further down the grid, we have the 20-year-old Australian Virtuosi racing driver of Jack Doohan. He raced in F2 last season with Virtuosi and finished 6th. Now, you might recognize the last name Doohan, as he is the son of the 5-time world champion motorcycle rider Mick Doohan. He's also an Alpine Academy driver. Joining him, making the switch from VAR to Virtuosi, is Amri Cudil, the 20-year-old Belgian driver. As I mentioned, he was with Van Amersfoort Racing and finished 17th last season. Now, kind of a cool fact, he's never karted professionally. He went straight into single-seater competitions, which is quite an interesting progression given he's only 21 and went straight into single-seater. Most drivers have to do karting of some level before making the switch. So I wonder what's the secret.
Yeah, that is quite unusual for a driver not to go through karting, because usually it seems like these days they're barely out of nappies and then into karting and then into F1. You know, just look at Tsunoda, for example. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Bear in mind he hasn't had the karting background. Moving down the grids, next we have PHM Racing by Charouz. Now, Charouz obviously, is a name well known, but due to the sponsorship deal, they are going to be known as PHM Racing by Charouz. First of all, they have a bit of a staple of the F2 grid, and that's not necessarily a good thing to say in a feeder series. Moving further down the grid, we have the 2 Charouz drivers, or I should say PHM Racing by Charouz. So first of all, we have an American driver, who I believe Zach Brown will probably be keeping an eye on, is Brad Benavides. Awesome name, by the way. He is a young 22-year-old American chap who will be doing his first season in Formula 2. Bit of a shock to some, given he only finished 23rd in F3 in his rookie year, and bear in mind he did complete a full season. But he'll be partnering a somewhat established name and you could say a long-standing driver of F2. That's not a good thing to say with a support series like this, or a feeder series, we should say. 1994, going to be 29 this year. Thanks for making me feel old, Roy, because I'm the same age as you. Swine is, as I mentioned, Roy Yassani, a 29-year-old to be Israeli driver. He will also be racing for Charouz. He has been in F2 for 4 years now. He did take some time out in 2019 as he had an injury. He finished a whopping P19 with Dams last season, and he is a Williams test driver. I think that tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, literally the oldest on the grid for this season. There's only 3 drivers that have 19 in their year. Make you feel old?
Yeah, very.
Another rookie coming in from F3 into F2 is Roman Stanek, the Czech driver who will be racing for Trident. He was also with Trident in F3, finished 5th, and as mentioned, this is his rookie year, but obviously he's been with Trident for a few years, so I feel like he's got a development with the team anyway to begin with. He was a member of the Sauber Junior team back in 2019 as well. Joining him, making the switch from MP Motorsport from last year, is Clement Novelat, the French driver, 23 this year. As mentioned, he was with MP Motorsport, who won the Constructors' Champion last year. But however, he finished 14th, unlike his teammate at the time, Felipe Drugovich, who was the world champion last season. He is also the BRDC British F3 champion back in 2019, before moving into F3 and F2.
Next up down the grid, we have 2 Van Amersfoort drivers. So first of all, we have the young 23-year-old Dutch driver, Richard Verschoor. He finished 12th with Trident last season in Formula 2. And this season, as in 2023, he's going to be entering his 3rd season in F2. Partnering Verschoor this season is going to be the 24-year-old American Juan Manuel Correa. Now, some of you will obviously recognise that name due to the bits we'll talk about in a moment. He was in Formula 3 a couple of years ago with ART, where he finished P13. He was in F2 for the 2019 season, but as I'm sure most people listening to this will be aware, or if you're not aware, he was involved in an accident where he collided with Antoine Hubert at the top of Radion at Spa. Again, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, Hubert tragically lost his life, and Correa sustained pretty severe injuries. It's incredible that he's back on the grid and back into an F2 car. That is testament to both his mental side and the physical recovery that he has done. But looking at some more positive history, he has raced in the European Le Mans LMP2 last year, where he finished 7th, I should say. And he will also be racing with Prema in the World Endurance Championship, or WEC, as people know it, this year.
And rounding out with the last 2 drivers of the 2023 grid is Kushmani, who is racing for Campos, 23 this year. He's another driver from F3 to move into F2. He was with MP Motorsport last season, finishing 14th. His brother also is a racing driver as well, who has competed in GP3 and in F2, even though he's younger and doesn't race anymore, which is quite funny. Age flip. And the last driver of the grid is one of the second oldest driver at 26, the Swiss driver, Ralph Boschon. He has raced every single year of F2. F2 started in 2017. Now, mind you, in 2020, he never completed a full season. He only raced 2 races that season to help with teams due to injuries. Last season, he was with Campos and finished 15th. Again, one of the few drivers still sticking with the same team from the previous season. And that's your 2023 grid. Now, we've mentioned the constructors a little bit, so let's talk about who they are, who's the team principal, and any kind of key facts. Right, with the constructors, we're going to go in order of how they finished last season. So starting off is the champion constructor with 305 points of MP Motorsport. They've been around since the beginning, since 2017. They're originally based in Netherlands, and the team principal is Sander Dorsman.
Next on the grid, we have Carlin, who's a team originally founded by Trevor Carlin, hence the name. This year, they're competing under the name of Rodin Carlin. They made the debut in F2 in 2017, having been a staple of the GP2 grid. They came second last season with 297 points. And as we mentioned, this season they've been renamed to Rodin Carlin, whereas in years gone by, they've been called just Carlin. Some previous drivers who are currently on the F1 grid include Lando Norris, who raced for them in 2018, and also Yuki Tsunoda raced for Carlin in 2020. I had to think about that for a moment because I keep forgetting we're another year along. Yuki Tsunoda raced for them in 2020 as well. So those are some of your incumbent F1 drivers.
Third in the standings is ART. the French constructing, again, another staple since 2017, with their team principal, Sebastian Philippe. They finished third with 281 points. Now, there's been some key people within ART, specifically the 2018 champion of George Russell, and also the 2019 champion, Nick de Vries, who is going to be making his full season debut in the F1 grid this season. Also, Alexander Albon did race for ART back in 2017 as well.
Fourth on the grid is Prema Racing. They are an Italian team who made their debut in F2 in its inaugural season in 2017, having been a staple of the GP2 and GP2 Asia paddock. They finished fourth in 2022 with 241 points, and they have three, I should say, previous drivers who are A, F2 champions, and B, currently or formerly on the F1 grid. The most recent one being Oscar Piastri. He's obviously 2021 F2 champion, who'll be racing for McLaren this season. They also had Mick Schumacher, who won the F2 title with Prema, who's obviously not on the grid anymore, or not actively. And then also in 2017, in the inaugural F2 season, Charles Leclerc won the driver's title whilst racing for Prema, and he is obviously at Ferrari for all his sins.
Next up, we have High-Tech, a UK-based team that's been around since 2020. They finished fifth with 207 points, and they're actually based in Silverstone. So it's quite cool to ride by the track, I think, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if they run out of nuts and bolts, they could just pop over to Aston Martin over the road and pick them up. Yeah. But just behind High-Tech is Dams, again, another sort of staple of the Sports Series paddock. You'll see their name a lot through GP2, F2, and also F3, GP3. They again joined in the inaugural 2017 season. They finished sixth in 2022, and they've had some good names racing for them in the past, but sadly no champions under the F2 umbrella as of yet. Could this be the season that changes? Who knows? Well,
I mean, Arthur Leclerc's joining, so maybe, given how close he's been in the champions in F3 for ages as well. Obviously not last season, but in previous seasons. But we'll see. Next up is Virtuosi Racing. They were actually started in 2018, so the year after F2 started. They're based in the UK, and they finished seventh with 134 points. Interestingly enough, they are the only team that's also not in F3. All other constructors are in F2 and in F3, but not Virtuosi.
It's unusual because you usually see teams in F2 and F3 together. As the two tends to go hand in hand, but at last, it may be a funding issue or something. But anyway, just behind them, we have, as previously mentioned, Charoux, who are racing under a different name this year. They're going to be called PHM Racing by Charoux. Technically, it's a new entry because it's a new constructor, much as Racing Point was to Force India back in 2018. Midway through the season, it's a similar thing to that. So it's a rebranding. It's a new entry, but it's the same team, same facilities, all the rest of it. They're based out in Germany. Charoux Racing was actually Czech originally, and that team was around since 2018. In 2022, they finished 8th with 130 points, and they've had the only F2 female driver thus far on the grid in Tatiana. I'm going to do that again because that wasn't very good. Just behind Virtuosi is PHM Racing by Charoux, who are technically a new entry for 2023. They have existed since 2018, but they renamed for the season, much like Force India did to Racing Point. It's that kind of thing. The structure and the backbone is still the same. They're based out in Germany now. It was originally a Czech team that's been around since 2018, who finished 8th with 130 points in 2022. Also last season, they had the only female F2 driver on the grid, being Tatiana Calderon.
Following from that is Trident, finishing 9th with 108 points. Again, another staple starting back in 2017, and they are based in Italy.
Yes, again, Trident, they've been around for years on the grid. Just behind Trident, we have Van Amersfoort Racing, who made their debut last year. F2 is a very, very difficult field to break into, so hopefully we'll see them we'll see them better their finishing position of 10th with 73 points. It's not a lot to add to them as they're a new team, but interesting to see what they bring.
And the final constructor is Campos Racing. Interesting enough, the team principal is Adrian Campos Jr., who you might recognize that name as his father is an ex-F1 driver. They've been around since 2017, and they are based in Spain. And as mentioned, we're going in order of standings from last season. They finished 11th with 67 points. However, they had a lot of team changes. Them and Shrews had a lot of team changes in the 2022 season with different drivers coming in and out as well. So hopefully it's all settled now. We have the drivers all confirmed for the full season, albeit hopefully there's no injuries or race bans from penalty points. But hopefully they'll get some more points on the grid for the next season.
Yes, and hopefully they don't do a Gasly and wind up with a load of points.
No race ban though. Close.
Don't tempt him. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting grid next year. There's quite a lot of sort of young blood coming through. It seems like it's almost exclusively sponsored by the Red Bull Junior program and the Ferrari Driver Academy. But throwing in a couple of Alpines, I think we've got a Merc driver in Frederick Vesti as well for good measure. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this season with in F2.
Yeah, and you got Teo as well, who's part of Sauber. It's gonna be interesting. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of rookies. I think there's only 2 teams with non-rookie, at least a non-rookie on the pairing. So we'll see how that comes into play, especially with these new tracks such as Melbourne coming in. And especially for some of these drivers in F3 who have never raced in Melbourne, or even F2 actually, who have not raced in Melbourne, but also these F3 drivers have never raced in Monaco. So that's going to be interesting this season as well, having them on the grid. See if they can put the skills to the test and come out quite nice high up on the grid.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be quite competitive at the top this season, I think. I think I'm hoping we're going to see some good battles between drivers and teams for those 2 top spots.
Any drivers caught your eye? Maybe gonna take the championship this year?
I think Daruvla might have a good shout because he's relatively consistent, and with the sort of erratic nature of F2, I'm hoping that he'll get somewhere. Failing that, I think Jack Doohan's a really good shout. He had a really strong season last season. Bear in mind he's a rookie as well. And also I'd say keep an eye out on Iwasa.
Okay. So all kind of returning F2 drivers. I'm going to go different. And I feel like I just need to back this given from Bermuda and from the islands. But Zane Maloney, I've said this on F1 Chronicle Grid Talk all the time and in conversations with other people. I think he is definitely one to watch, given that he finished second in his rookie year in F3, sorry. And now he's moved up into F2. His links now to Red Bull being potentially the reserve driver. I think he's definitely going to be the one to watch, and he's going to surprise us all. But other than that, Ollie Bearman as well. So, it was such a close battle in the Formula 3 season last season, which we'll definitely go into in a next episode or so down the line. But they were very close. It was anybody's. It was either Victor Martins, Zane, or Ollie, pretty much. And you just didn't really know. It was quite a very head-to-head battle. It went down to the last wire, to the last lap of the race. So I think Ollie might come out with some good points as well. Returning grid as well. Dennis Hauger as well, I think might actually get some good points. And he had not the best season with Prema in his rookie year, but I think now moving to MP, having MP win the Constructors last season, I think they have a nice car setup, and who knows? Maybe he might give them back-to-back Constructor championships.
I just knew you were going to back Maloney.
I have to.
I just knew
Island support. Island support, yes. Yeah. But he's a good driver as well. There's a lot of good talent in F2 this year. There are probably good half a dozen drivers, I'd say, who are in a good shout with taking the title. And if we just run down the list of drivers we've got, I would say Hauger, Daruvla. You could throw maybe Maloney in there. Iwasa, Leclerc, Doohan, to a point, Clement Novalak as well. I'd say maybe Richard Rishaw. Any of them,
I'd say do have an outside chance of taking the title, because those are the names you've seen around a bit. I think Leclerc might perhaps take another season, and I hope that there's not as much pressure on him because of his surname, like we get with, because obviously, his brother, very, very successful already in F1. Doesn't have a title yet, but I think that's only a matter of time, provided Ferrari don't pit him for Hards in Hungary again. Looking at you, Ferrari. I'm not even a Ferrari fan, but even I felt for Leclerc then. But yeah, even when you've got sort of younger drivers, like Jack Crawford, Ollie Behrman coming through. I mean, Teo Pourchaire's only 20. It's just mad. And then you've got Grandad Nassani driving around. He's gonna be 30 next year. Unlike someone else on this call, and it's not you.
Nope, so, 25.
Yeah, all right, rub it in, why don't you? There's a lot of good talent in the grid this year, and there's a lot of potential with people. So we'll see.
Definitely, and we'll have episodes each week giving you a rundown on how the season goes. Because, like I said, it's anybody's race. It goes down to the last wire because of how the points are structured, how crazy these drivers can get with their elbows out in racing. It's anybody's title to win for this season.
It's going to be great. F2 is always really competitive to watch. It's always really fun. So let's just buckle in and enjoy it. And I think especially when we get some weekends which are going to be slightly more mundane, should we say, F1 races. So so circuits where perhaps we don't see as much good overtaking, what have you. I think it'd be a good chance for people to watch more F2 if you want to see wheel-to-wheel racing, especially going into the spec series, give F2 a watch. Seriously, you'll thank us. I hope, please.
Definitely, for sure. Well, that's our episode. Coming to you next week is it potentially the F3 grid. It's still not confirmed yet. We still have a few more seats available, so we'll see. Maybe we'll give you a rundown on how the 2022 season happened for F2. Who knows? Like I said, we could get all the seats filled by the time we film our next episode.
I mean, I don't even know how many seats are left in F3. They confirmed one just before we started recording this.
Did they?
Yeah, I can't remember who it was though, because I only caught.
Oh, Genza, Nikita Bedrin.
That's right. So, I only caught a quick glance at it before 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yep. So there's only six spots still available, including the whole team of PHM Racing by Charouz. They have not confirmed any drivers yet. Actually, there's 7 spots. We have 1 for High Tech, we have 1 for Roden Carling, 1 for Campos, and 1 for Jensen. But that's another episode for another day.
Absolutely.
Formula Talk, which is part of F1 Chronicle Grid Talk, is available on YouTube. Most of the episodes will be recorded live once the season starts. At the moment, this is pre-recorded, but once the F2 season starts, we're going to be recording live on YouTube, so make sure you like and subscribe. But you can also find us on other platforms such as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search Formula One Grid Talk to find our back catalog of shows with previews and reactions to qualifying and race results for Formula One, as well as this new show talking about all things other motorsport racing. As well, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon so we can get better mics, lights, and better recording equipment. Also, make sure you're subscribed to us so you're the first to know when each new weekly episode is released. We'll be back soon with plenty more motorsport content. Thank you, Tom, for joining me today.
Pleasure as always.
And thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.